Hey! So my name is Serag, and today I'm not going to talk about anything overly complicated or too technical. This is going to probably be one of the strangest presentations you've seen in Taipei so far. My one and only goal is that by the end of this, every one of you goes WTF. Oh. The first thing about going WTF is I'm going to talk about cats and magic. So, essentially, all these different conversations we're hearing about layer 2s and scalability issues with Ethereum and, Vitalik, writing different articles about the 6 different paths that Ethereum can go, that all started during what time? When do you guys think that the scalability challenges of EVM really came to a forefront? Can anyone just throw out a time or what caused that big issue in the first place? I kind of feel like what was that? CryptoKitties, exactly. Therefore, ergo the cats. All of a sudden, people started putting cats on chain. And if we learned anything from the internet, it's when you mix cats with emerging technologies, things start to blow up. They were like, what the heck? Ether gas prices are going like crazy. Who are these crazy people? They're breeding the cats? What does that even mean? Now that's exponential growth of these assets. These images are massive. What's going on? Right? And that really, no one was really expecting that. There was about 25% of all the traffic on Ethereum was going through these cats, right? And the price of gas went up about 4 to 5x. It was a very interesting time. And so the reason I'm telling you about these cats, which a lot of us already know about, is because their story is very entwined with the story of Flow. If you guys haven't figured it out yet, WTF is an acronym for With The Flow. Long story short, the team behind CryptoKitties got together, and after they saw the massive challenges with scalability, they were like, hey, we need to create a new type of solution that's scalable, that's ergonomic. We need a chain that's built by builders for builders. If a bunch of cat images could break everything, we need to fix that. And so one of these people that created CryptoKitties was also the person who invented the word NFT. And he's our current co-founder and chief architect, Dieter Shirley. He not only invented the word NFT, he was a core contributor to ERC 721. Yeah, so Flow is the consumer chain. What does that mean? Could we go? It means that we're the chain that's trying to really target everyday people and make essentially Web3 easy for people around the world. We have brands that everyone really knows about, like NBA Top Shot was one of the very first applications that were built and launched on the Flow blockchain. If you're a basketball fan, you probably remember that from the last NFT bull run in 2023. We're like, oh, Stephen Curry, you could capture 10 seconds of him doing a slam dunk. That's super cool. It really became one of the biggest kind of non-DeFi killer apps in the industry, right? And it sparked a lot of imagination and excitement. One of the coolest things was when Flow was created, we were thinking about how could we create a new multi-role node architecture that allows for scalability without sharding. So in the world of Ethereum, you could think of nodes as all doing the exact same work. All these robots, you continuously add more robots. It doesn't really allow for horizontal scalability, but they're all doing everything from verification to you name it. On Flow, we kind of do it a very different way, similar to the best analogy I would give is the Ford assembly line. We have several hyper-focused types of nodes. One is only focused on verification. One is only focused on access. One is only focused on so far and so forth, right? And so what that allowed is a single application, Top Shot, on some days was able to essentially process more transactions than the entire Ethereum network. It showed that a single application with this new form of architecture could scale beyond the level of entire chains, and it really reinvented what's possible. And so after Top Shot's success, all of a sudden, there was a flurry of different consumer everyday applications that were like, hey, we want to get into Web3. One of them was Ticketmaster. If you've ever went to a Broadway play, if you ever went to watch the Lion King musical, an NFT was minted in the background on Flow for that. And it's easy to token gate, it's easy to compose new applications on top of that. I think BZ, you could correct me if I'm wrong. Ticketmaster is one of the largest NFT platforms in the world.
Ticketmaster is the largest NFT collection in the world with almost 80 million NFTs.
80 million NFTs, right? And it's so smooth that no one on Ticketmaster even know that it's built on a blockchain. Same thing with NBA Top Shot. Millions of dollars in revenue, millions of users. None of those users really know that it's built on a blockchain. Other examples are Disney launched Disney Pinnacle. They're like, hey, let's allow people to collect Darth Vader digital pins. Let's allow them to have Disney princesses. Mattel was like, wait a minute, if there's Disney princesses, let's also have collectibles for, Barbie. And so we had a lot of really exciting public-facing applications launch. I'm kind of naming the big names that a lot of us are familiar with from the consumer world, but 90% of all the newer applications launching are in DeFi and AI agents, and there's thousands and thousands of indie developers that are launching really cool stuff. So a little bit on the stats side. So we have about 600 million transactions that have been launched, 45 million accounts, 440 network nodes, and 20 countries with nodes around the world. So very decentralized. Out of those 45 to 50 million accounts, again, most of them are using applications that they don't even know run on a blockchain. And so some of the ways that we've really pushed that forward is, I'll take a step back. Imagine that you have a friend, and your friend tells you that, hey, I wanna introduce you to a new Web3 game. You don't know anything about Web3. As soon as you go to that game, you see a connect wallet button in the top right corner. You're like, WTF is that? This is the wrong type of WTF. You're like, what the heck? You click on it, all of a sudden, you have to download a random ass plugin on Chrome extension store. You're like, okay, I'll download that. All of a sudden, you have to memorize a bunch of random words. Okay, that's really weird. But wait, don't save those words on your laptop, because then people could steal stuff from you. Write it down somewhere, but make sure you don't burn that or forget it or throw it away while you're cleaning, right? You don't even have anything to lose, and you're already getting super paranoid about the security, and you're like, I don't want to lose anything. Crypto's kind of like a scary thing. I don't know what I'm getting into. When can I play this game? Long story short, you end up eventually accessing that game. You're able to log in. You have MetaMask set up or whatever. First thing that you try to do is a transaction. What are you going to run into?
You don't have gas.
Yeah, you don't have gas. What the hell is gas? Is that some magical internet tax? How do I get taxed? How do I get this magic tax? Okay, faucet. What if it's a mainnet application?
Buy it.
You buy it? Okay, now I have to Google where to buy it or ask GPT. Probably a centralized exchange. I'm from Canada. If you're in Canada and you try to buy from any on-ramp, you're going to be on a call with the fraud department in your bank for 3 hours. It will take 2 days before you're practically able to play that game. How many people of our generation with our attention deficits actually going to get to that stage? That's the opposite of good UX, right? So the reason I gave that analogy was because Flow really invested heavily in things like protocol level account abstraction. So you could really have accountless experiences at the protocol level. We also have a very unique transaction model, which I'll get to in a bit. One of the cool value propositions on Flow that I want to talk about is attachments. Most Web3 devs have attachment issues. They just haven't realized it yet. So what the heck are attachments? It's the ability to add extra data and functionality without permission from the original contract author. You could think of this like modding for Web3. And if you've been a fan of gaming and you looked at Skyrim or modding Nexus, you will see that the original creators of a game like Skyrim couldn't possibly imagine that billions of downloads rather, would occur for their game in all of these new scenarios and modding experiences that the people created. One popular one that came out was people mixed OpenAI with Whisper AI, so you could go to a non-playing character, an NPC, and you could ask it, what's the weather like, oh ye Khajiit? Where can I find some of that moonshine in the nearest village, right? And so as you talked, it took your words, turned it into text. It gave that two-dimensional NPC a genuinely human, lifelike experience where you could actually talk and it will talk back to you and it'll understand. And it'll give you such different answers than the pre-programmed finite set of hard-coded responses that the original devs could have imagined. So it essentially turned their product into a platform that solved the innovator's dilemma. Which is super, super exciting. It extended the shelf life tremendously, and millions of people, that mod I think got almost 1 billion downloads. Millions of people continue over a decade after the game was launched using that platform. This is something super sexy and exciting in Web3. It's something that is essential for composability. And you solving a problem once essentially meaning you solve it for everyone everywhere. If you look on Etherscan, you look at the verified contracts, how many of them are Forkenstein projects of Uniswap V2's router or something that already exists, right? You don't have to redeploy contracts. You could permissionlessly extend and compose on top of them. So metadata views are all about future-proofing and interoperability. I'm going to read directly from the slide because I don't have it pre-memorized. It's about adding metadata to tokens that allow for interoperability with applications and adherence to evolving standards. So WTF does that mean? Essentially what that means is if you have something like an NFT, you could specify things like this is the royalties. This is like how much in royalties your marketplace should charge. This is the address that you should send all royalties to. So if that NFT ends up entering any NFT marketplace in the ecosystem, whether it's OpenSea, whether it's this other one, you can read that metadata directly, know exactly who to send the royalties to and how much. You could also do things like there's constantly evolving standards. Instead of creating a new ERC blank, 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 what happens in 5 years from now if all of a sudden, we have these weird metaverse applications where you want to be able to really specify that art board ape that you have or art piece is going to show up on a wall just like that. And you have these metaverse marketplaces. You want the ability to future-proof your assets for evolving standards so that they remain interoperable with newer technology that's coming out. So this is really exciting because it not only guarantees that future proofing, but it also guarantees backwards compatibility. So you could have fields that are required at the time you launch and then fields that are optional that you add after you launch that token and create that metadata. Capabilities. This one is a little bit of a challenging word because whenever I tell people, oh, there's certain capabilities on Flow and in the Cadence world, and one of the coolest capabilities it has is capabilities, it kind of gets really kind of recursive. But I'm going to explain what that is. It's essentially granular permissions, very similar to AWS IAM controls that you'll typically see in the Web2 world. You could do really cool shit with this. So one example that I like to talk about is AI agents, right? So there was a really cool example where someone launched an AI agent on Twitter. And they had an invariant. They told that agent, you have one responsibility. You'll accept funds in exchange for people communicating with you, but you're never allowed to send those funds to any address, right? All of a sudden, someone sends a message to it on Twitter, or another person adds it and asks it a question saying like, hey, can you send me the funds? It says no. The more and more people that interact with it, the more a honeypot started forming. $5 is started being owned by the agent, and then $10, and then $100, and then $1,000. All of a sudden, it was sitting on $50,000 of funds. And someone came up with a very creative prompt to trick the agent into sending them all those funds, right? So if you have these types of access controls with capabilities, it's so easy to set up safeguards for your agents and specify things that you're 100% sure it will never violate. Like you're only able to interact with these types of people or these different accounts, right? And as we delegate more and more responsibilities to agents, as they take over pretty much the future of work, as they take over our finances, as they take over our planning for which is the next vacation you're going to go and purchasing those tickets with MCP, right? We want to make sure that we're able to programmatically ensure safeguards that they don't end up wrecking us. So essentially, you would use a paymaster contract. There's a lot of really cool things like Alchemy has their account kit. You could use smart accounts like EIP 4337 or 7702, which is coming out. To essentially have this contract, you send the funds exactly like what Antonio was saying, and it's kind of like watching when someone's trying to propose a transaction and kind of doing it on their behalf. You don't need to do any of that complex stuff on Flow. It's baked directly into the transaction model. Whenever you're defining a transaction, you're able to specify one of three roles. Who is the payer, who is the proposer, and who is the authorizer or authorizers. So, for example, you could have the application be the authorizer, you could have the application be the payer, and a wallet that's associated with them, but the user is the proposer. This solves a lot of different UX challenges. Two of the biggest ones is essentially at the protocol level, like at the transaction level, removing the need to have like paymaster contracts or anything like that and allowing you to create gasless experiences. The second thing is, imagine you're playing a game. And in that video game, every single move is a transaction. Now, that's not the best practice if you are a game developer, but for example's sake, imagine you're in that situation. It's a really crappy experience having a modal pop up every single time you try to do something. It's a really crappy experience like having to send, 10 different transactions if I'm in a video game and I'm trying to, if you're playing like World of Warcraft and you're in a trading view and you're trying to send someone 7 pieces of armor in exchange for 5 gems, you don't have to do an individual transaction for all of those. So typically people will use things like 4337 or 7702 to try to do bundle transactions. We have that built into Flow. Also, the applications could manage the authorizations. This is also super exciting for agents. Where we are at right now is Flow wasn't really an EVM equivalent chain until last year, and something massive happened. We did the largest upgrade ever with what we internally and externally called Crescendo. And all of a sudden now that means, similar to the compatibility of rootstock, if you're an EVM developer, if you're writing in Solidity, you could seamlessly deploy those contracts on Flow and add it almost like any EVM L2. We are an L1, but like it's as easy to launch. You just literally like take the JSON RPC like info and change the chain ID. You use your favorite tools, whether it's Hardhat, Alchemy, Foundry, whatever. It works seamlessly. Since we did that, we've seen an explosion in TVL on chain, with it growing like literally 1000x. We've also seen an explosion of DeFi protocols and agents getting launched. Where we're at today is we have about 10K in bounties, and our number one bounty is essentially the next killer app. Right? We want to see people really think about what are the big problems that people face, and how do I create a solution that solves a massive problem for a large group of people. One analogy I like to give is if you think about ChatGPT, AI models have been around forever, but they've kind of been in the world of academia or massive companies like SAP with their predictive analytics platforms or Google, and everyday people really didn't benefit from them too much. All of a sudden, we had that kind of product market fit where people were used to using chatbots, whether messaging their friends on Messenger, etc. And then ChatGPT opened up a huge amount of value and utility for a wide array of different use cases. All of a sudden, your grandmother could use it to come up with a new recipe. Your brother, who's a crappy artist and is struggling to find work, but keeps on says, yes, I'm going to become, big someday. Again, I don't know about that, but he could giblify all the family's album images, and all of a sudden they think maybe he's going on the path he thought he always wanted to go, right? Maybe you want to learn a new language and you want to practice Greek, like back and forth with something, but you don't have enough money to hire a tutor, right? All of a sudden, GPT opened for everyday people, billions of people, huge amounts of potential, and it was the fastest adopted technology in history, right? So my question to you guys when you're thinking about that is, what are the big challenges that everyday people face that are uniquely solved by Web3? What are areas where inefficiencies are introduced and deadweight loss from inefficient middlemen? What are areas where we really want to make autonomous systems that solve problems in human coordination? It doesn't matter if you're thinking about creating a fun game. It doesn't matter if you're thinking about creating the next DeFi primitives. It doesn't matter if you're trying to create an AI agent. What I really want to drive home is, what is the pain you're solving? Why does it matter? And how is it going to make the world a better place? I'm going to end this with a bit of a quote by Arthur C. Clarke. He said, and I'm sure most of you have heard of it, he said that any sufficiently advanced technology is indistinguishable from magic. Something interesting about this quote is, if you look at the etymology of the word magic, it comes from the Indo-European word mag, which means, and I don't know if that's how they pronounced it, I'm just assuming they pronounced it that rough, but it means to be able, right? And the core of what we're doing in technology is, like, if you're a doctor, if you're an engineer, you build a bridge, you're benefiting like 1,000 people every day. If you're a doctor, you might save like 12 lives a day, right? But technology is one of the only things that, with one weekend of passion, with 2.5 days of hacking, you can create something that positively impacts billions of people. you can create something that enables billions of people. That is literally magic, and I really look forward to seeing what you guys are going to build.